we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the insurrection. I'm Michael Albert. This is Derek Evans. It's another glorious day in America's new golden age, and we've got a lot to discuss.
Absolutely, man. Hope everybody had a great day yesterday. We appreciate you guys for tuning in with us. As always, guys, like, share, subscribe, all those good things, whatever platform you're checking us out on. If you're watching live, hop in the comments. As always, I read all the comments. I'll do my very best to give you guys a shout out, kind of like this. We already got Kelly Song over here in the Rumble chat. We got JR and a few others in the X chat right now popping off. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. With that, we got an awesome show lined up for you guys today. We got an awesome guest, Relentless Bill Robinson, in the house.
Hello, gentlemen. Michael, Derek, you're truly America-loving patriots.
Well, as are you, and thank you for joining us. If you could give our audience a little rundown on who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, I guess first and foremost, I'm different than what I do. Who I am is a Christian conservative, unwavering father of 2 daughters and grandfather of 2 more. I love this country. I support President Trump. I'm flying my colors right now. And I'm so thrilled with the Make America Great Again agenda. Everything that's going on makes me have a good belly laugh at our opponents, our enemies. These people have tried to destroy our country, and they must pay the price.
Oh, yeah. And Bill was also over there with us recently in Belgium and prior to that in Romania, trying to help spread the agenda and the message and trying to help make Europe great again. So Bill is truly a great patriot on this continent and many others.
Well, sadly, I say sadly because it's of dubious note that somebody's a journalist these days. I've been writing a regular column for Newsmax for the last 6 years. Before that, I spent 7 years writing for the Huffington Post. Was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for one of my columns. I didn't win, of course. No conservatives ever win. Before that, I wrote for the Wall Street Journal, Fortune, Forbes, the Financial Times, and appeared on most of the big TV networks. So I'm coming from a long career in journalism, but I'm really a patriot, somebody who loves this country so much. I would do whatever I had to do to help out in the mission of saving this country. I would sweep floors and I would clean toilets.
I hear you on that. And guys, try not to hold the Huffington Post against him. I remember that's where Andrew Breitbart got his start.
Good point.
Well, before we jump into kind of the main stories that we're going to cover today, I do want to touch on this breaking news. InfoWars reporter brutally murdered in Austin. Alex Jones blames policies of Soros-backed district attorney. And it's come to light this morning, too, or it's, I guess, not so much come to light, but people have been reminded this morning that this journalist, and I'm sorry, Derek,
Jamie White.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I keep messing his first name up. I apologize. But he was also on that hit list, so to speak, from Ukraine of the journalists they didn't like that were digging into the wrong things.
Oh, I didn't realize that he was on that list as well. That's that definitely is interesting. Praying for him and for his family and all the people at the Infowars community over there. From what I understand, he was living very close to the studios as well. This is not one of those situations where he was out doing something that he wasn't supposed to be doing, and this happened, which would still be unfortunate. It wasn't one of those situations from what I understand, at least, anyways. And it's a terrible situation all the way around.
Yeah, what makes a little unusual too is that the police haven't really released any information. I mean, even InfoWars, he didn't show up at the studio. They tried to send somebody to his house to check up on him. They saw the police tape and the blood in the parking lot. I guess still hadn't been cleaned off. And then the police have been very tight-lipped with any information. We don't know what happened. We know he was either stabbed or shot. But, being this far from when the crime occurred, which they think it happened around Wednesday, night before last, but the fact that they're not putting any information forward, we don't know if this is a robbery gone bad. He's a victim of random crime. I've also seen different things, different articles. Some say the apartment complex had a entry gate and controlled access. Others are saying that isn't true, but. If it did have controlled access, was this person laying in wait for him? Or, again, was this just a random crime, went bad, and he lost his life over it?
Yeah, it's sad either way. Like I said, it's unfortunate. And hopefully, his family can get some closure in that, and they can find the people who did this and what the motive and all those things were. I want to go ahead and clear some chats really quick. I want to give a shout out to Country Heart, Mama Teresa, and appreciate you guys for tuning in over here. And then we got Dan Dreyer over here in the Rumble chat. Appreciate you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to dig into some interesting stuff here this morning because he married his babysitter. Bill, you want to set this one up?
Yeah, so it's just kind of part of the gigantic fraud that is Joe Biden. Here's a guy who at 27 was elected to the Senate, which there should kind of be the same age limit on the presidency. You should be 35 before you go to the Senate. You should have to go. It should be like a farm team situation. You should be elected to U.S. Congress first, then move up to Senate, then maybe run for the presidency. But you got, junior senators from Illinois running for president. You got like all these minor league people pulling themselves up the ladder on the backs of others. Joe Biden was elected because the Delaware banks wanted him to help with their profit margins and their credit cards. That's what he's done all his career in the Senate. He's been a laughing stock of the Senate. He has no friends. The only friend he had was, Songbird John McCain. Wow, That's a surprise. And so, this guy's been a complete phony. He's a man of the people. Oh, yeah, sure. And he was also, according to Jim Clyburn, so closely tied to the black community. And then they started in with the retarded song of, he's met every world leader and he's so good at foreign policy. This is all nonsense. So, and you'll notice whenever he's in a problem in a debate or with the media, he's like, I lost my wife and my son and, in a horrible car accident. Look, everybody's had sympathy for that initially, but when he uses it as a trick to change the conversation, I'm sorry, the sympathy window is closed on that. And every one of us has had some tragic situation in our life, and he's using that for personal gain, personal political gain. So when I started looking at the dynamics of his wife was killed in a car accident, what was he doing before that? Jill Biden was in the household. That's interesting. How old was she? She was 14. Then you factor in the sniffing of hair, all of little girls' hair, and the kiss, the satanic kissing of babies, like scaring babies and acting like he's going to eat them. I mean, This is insanity. So the whole thing is, like Jill Biden was the babysitter there in the household. His wife died and his child died. I think maybe more than one child died in a tragic car accident. Again, the sympathy window's closed. And then all of a sudden, it's Joe and Jill. And so figure it out, people. Look at the photo where she's like, I don't know, 17 and he's like, 26. I don't know, 28, whatever. So anyway, I think we really need to go back to Jim Clyburn and say, what were you thinking? This guy's a racist. This guy's a pedophile.
Yeah, well, and that's something that that's kind of been his reputation to begin with. I mean, I remember when this guy was still Hair Plugs Joe, or Lunch Bucket Joe, I guess is what he would have preferred, and he was just known as a serial plagiarist. But somebody, I don't know if this is because he was compromised or because he didn't need to be compromised. He was just willing to do and say and whatever they needed, and then. As you saw, he's run for president multiple times, had to bow out, was never popular. And then all of a sudden he's selected by Barack Obama, and his reputation goes to the moon. And as we found out later, he was keeping, documents, classified information, stored safely in his Corvette, as, most politicians do, and at the Penn Biden Center. Let's not forget, this is 1,850 sets of documents, hundreds of boxes, not kept under lock and key, kept behind the safety of a wooden garage door. But we want to pretend that Trump and the Republicans, they're the problem. Let's also not forget, how pliable this guy is, that they were very clearly selling access through his son Hunter, serial crackhead and Ukrainian energy expert. This guy's been bad news from the very beginning. He sold our country up a river. That's why we're in the situation that we're in right now, where Trump's so desperate to get our economy back on track and get we're going to get into it more. I mean, this guy, spent $1 trillion on DEI in the last 4 years.
Well, oh, go ahead, Derek.
No, I was going to add really quick. I agree with everything you guys are saying. I'm really glad you brought this up, Bill. I didn't realize that Joe Biden had been that young as the babysitter, and it's kind of really connecting a lot of dots here when you think about that, especially when you also consider that he was. It's a known fact he was showering with his daughter, who was old enough to not be showering with, for sure. It's not like she was a toddler or something. I want to give us a couple shout outs here to clear the chat really quick before I pass it back to you, Bill. Special shout out to Thaddeus. Thanks for sharing the stream, man. Appreciate that. We got Kristen in the house. We got Magnetic Norse in the house. What's up, Magnetic? Magnetic says he, talking about Biden, was Obama's perfect puppet, which I agree with 100%. And then Philly Fan says, and this is exactly what I feel, Biden is such a weirdo. And I think that explains it for me as well.
I think that does too. And Michael filled in the rest of the absolute tsunami about what brain damaged. I've tried to settle it down to 10 words on Biden because there's so much evidence. Biden is a brain damaged, criminally corrupt pedophile and traitor. And so I'd like to wrap up my contribution to this story with, we can't let this story die. They're in the process of farming him out and eliminating his memory, just like Robert Byrd, Grand Dragon, and Cyclops, or whatever he was of the Ku Klux Klan. They want to bury all these awful people in their back, in the rearview mirror, and they just won't stop. So the last thing I want to say is a little tidbit came out today that I heard, and one of the hardcore Democrat Satanists said, Joe Biden should have never been elected. He was totally corrupt. He shouldn't have been president ever. And guess who that was? Chuck Todd. So they're in the process of belittling, besmirching. I mean, we were doing the besmirching before, but they're coming out acting as if they knew it all the time, or they're just becoming aware of it, and it was so wrong. This was what those people ate, slept, and drank for the last 15 years. Joe Biden's a good guy. Well, we all know the true story now.
Well, exactly. And he never would have gotten the positions he had if the media weren't running cover for him the whole time with their, convenient memory lapses of all his plagiarism and everything else. And everybody knew this guy was a basement dwelling child sniffer in 2020. But again, without the media there to run cover for the relationships he had, the plagiarism, and all the corruption, keeping the Hunter Biden laptop out of the news. I mean, this is a coordinated effort to put their puppet in that the deep state could control, and that's really what's coming to light right now with this auto pen scandal. So let's go ahead and jump into that too. Who's behind this auto pen? 6 criminals were pardoned with Biden auto pen. signed in the city of Washington. On the same day, Joe Biden vacationed and golfed in St. Croix. So people are starting to do the math and figure out that Biden wasn't even in control of this auto pen. Someone else was doing this. And now the question is, did he have knowledge of it? Did he approve this? Or were they just taking advantage of his dementia, and the puppet masters were pulling the strings and he just went along with it and smiled?
So we have confirmation right now that while 6 of these people were pardoned, we don't know exactly which 6. Maybe that says in the article, I don't know, but at least 6 people were pardoned from a signature that took place in Washington D.C. While we know for a fact that Joe Biden was nowhere near Washington D.C. Is that what you're saying right now, Mike?
Yep, bingo. Yep,
exactly. That's crazy, man. And Dan Dreyer brings up a really good question over here in the Rumble chat that kind of ties all this together for me, anyways. He says, could Joe Biden have been the start of fraud in our country going back over half a century? I think a lot of people are forgetting how long this guy has truly been in these positions, and think about how many other senators and Congress people have came through Washington, D.C. during the last half century while Joe Biden has been there and had the ability to say, hey, did you know that you can do this and make your family rich? I mean, who knows? But I mean, that's a really good point. He could have been, if not the start of it, maybe somebody who made it more mainstream within the halls of that Congress and more acceptable to do what he's been doing in terms of all the fraud.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's such a great tie-in. I love this auto pen scandal because it ties in so beautifully with Barack Obama and the video evidence, right? You can't deny video of him saying, "I'd love to be in my sweats, controlling everything from the basement." Because these people are evil is basically stupid. So when evil people are doing their dirty work, they're always talking about it to someone, and they always make these critical mistakes. It's like they're just shooting themselves in the foot as they go along. So Obama said that. And then obviously, Biden was totally incompetent. Remember, don't forget Corn Pop, right? That was during the election.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, Corn Pop should have been his door out. But he went on with the Corn Pop and the roaches in his lap and all this other stuff. He was completely off his rocker. I wrote an article called "The Man is Completely Off His Rocker." Nobody would run it. And so I was, this is before we got into the heat of the campaign. And so I just love the auto pen thing. And I think it just kind of highlights that. Of course, they're going to try to. So it highlights the fact that Susan Rice and Barack Obama and the kingmaker Valerie Jarrett were all running our country. But they're going to try to claim, we had him sign it on a Zoom call from the golf course or something. They're going to try something like that. But obviously it's BS.
Well, really quick, Smash says in the X chat here says Biden has been lying his entire career, which is 100% true. Tora over here says, this is mind blowing. Tora says, I'm Gen X, midpoint. I was 3 when Biden was elected. I'm 53 today. Like, that's insane. Like, every memory this person could possess and they're 53 years old would be Joe Biden in office. That is nuts when you think about that. And then Thaddeus brings up a really good question on the point of the auto pen being used to sign pardons in Washington, D.C., while we know 100% with undisputable evidence that Joe Biden was in a totally different city. Could those pardons be revoked on these grounds? I don't know that answer, but I think it's at least worth looking into and questioning that. And then I just want to quickly state that my favorite Joe Biden story of all time, let me know in the chat what you guys' favorite Joe Biden story is. I truly love those things. But my favorite one is his uncle supposedly getting eaten by cannibals.
Yeah,
that's the best. I don't care. That's my favorite.
I love that one too, Derek. I love that one too. And the driving the semi. I mean, that's the thing. There was so much evidence. We should have all just, it's not our fault, but it's partially the fault of good Judeo-Christian conservatives for not standing up and saying, no, hell no. We can't have this guy in office. There's no way. And we should have just beat that drum to death. We've got to keep beating the drum on Biden and what they did to us for 4 years and almost destroying this country with a suicidal, demented maniac in control of this country. And we've got to beat that drum through the midterms in 26. We've got to beat it through the presidential in 28, 32. We've got to use that the way we didn't really use Jimmy Carter against the Democrats all through the last several decades. We need to call these people out and pin it to the wall so everybody can see it, what they did to us.
Yes, I think in the midterms, we need to be reminding them exactly who Biden and Kamala Harris were. I think my favorite Joe Biden memory was how he expanded the English language with new words like next Nelrescent. I remember when he promised us Batacath care. I remember... what was the other big one I used to say all the time? Truanata Shabbat pressure. That was my other favorite Biden phrase. And we still haven't translated those back to English or real English, but he did help expand the English language. And then to your point, Derek, watch. White House counselor Alina Habba says, would challenge the validity of Biden's auto pen pardons, FBI and DOJ working around the clock, looking at Liz Cheney, Pocahontas, and Nancy Pelosi. So that was 3 of the 6 pardons that were signed by the auto pen in D.C. Well, Biden was on the golf course in St. Croix. So that becomes the real question is, can Biden's auto pen, does that have the same authority that he's supposed to carry as the president? Again, everybody knew this guy was mentally incompetent. They sat on it. They lied. I think they need to be challenging everything he signed, especially since we learned a few days ago that every piece of legislation, every executive order, every pardon were signed by the auto pen, except for when he went to resign. Apparently that was a real genuine Joseph Robinette Biden III signature.
Well, look, Dan Dreyer brings up a really good point as usual over in the Rumble chat. Dan Dreyer says any executive order or law should have a valid signature, and we should challenge this and let the courts decide. And I have to agree with that, especially when you're talking about. I get using auto pen for certain little things here and there, some of maybe past Congress or whatever, and you're just click 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 click. I get it. In this digital age, I'm not trying to say that they have to go get a Quell pen and dip it in some ink and sit there and sign their name like our founding fathers did. But when we're talking about an executive order, which honestly, realistically, I think that all these executive orders are unconstitutional. I don't think that they should be existing the way this is basically letting them play king in some aspect or another. So that's another story for another day. But when you're talking about the executive orders, which is giving these presidents this much power, or a pardon, which has got that much power, I do think that there should be, honestly, if it's not signed in front of the whole world, there needs to be, in addition to the signature, there should be witnesses. And, just like I can't forge Bill's name over here and turn it in and say that he signed it. That has to go get notarized. It has to be proven that he signed it. That'd be for something simple, something little, let alone something that's going to affect the entire country. So I definitely agree that there needs to be some sort of checks and balances there. And then I got a shout out I got to get to Wendy, FG, and Sean over here in the Getter chat. Appreciate you guys for tuning in.
Well, I just want to jump back, if I may, to Alina Habba. I want to say right here and right now what all men are thinking about Alina Habba. And I'm currently right now a bachelor, I can feel free to do so without any physical assaults happening to me when I get home. She is a red hot, super intelligent gal who I'm fascinated by. And you don't want Alina Habba coming after you. This is one person, like, I wouldn't want Pam Bondi coming after me, but Alina Habba is a whole different level. This gal, like, I love the initial, images of her sitting next to President Trump in that cruddy New York courtroom filled with communists from the judges right on down, and that stern look she had on her face. This woman is tops. And, I just got to say that, I think that she's, it's good she's with the president. I think she's going to be a real beneficial legal mind to have with him. And I was there in Madison Square Garden at the last big rally. And when she came out dancing to that song with a sequined Magua jacket, and then what she said about President Trump, it was stunning. So big Alina Habba fan. And of course, the left love to hate her. They're going to start it on her like Elon Musk and President Trump.
Oh yeah.
And one other thing here, tying this story together, I think is important, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday on yesterday's show. But the or maybe it was the one before, but talking about Speaker Johnson's story, where he shared the story of where Joe Biden had no clue one of the executive orders he had signed that involved the LNG exports to the natural gas leaving Louisiana and stuff, and Joe Biden genuinely did not know that he had signed that executive order. And then so that kind of ties in with all this. And then Country Heart in the X chat brings up a good point. President Trump has signed every single one of these executive orders publicly and witnessed, all of us could see it happen in front of everyone. Whereas Joe Biden, nobody knew that they were planning to sign anything. No one knew that anything was signed. You just see a headline pop up in the, yeah, exactly. You just see a headline pop up one day that says Joe Biden signed this. And there was no evidence of it. I mean, it really does beg the question as to who was running our country, and are these valid at this point and legally binding, or can we go back and say all of these things? I think the whole entire everything with the illegitimate Biden regime should be null and void because they stole the election to begin with. That's another story. But in addition to that, you have to start, and then I guess even if nothing else, even if we can't go back retroactively, this should at least say we're going to draw a line in the sand and say moving forward, you can't do this in terms of executive orders and pardons and such moving forward. At the very least, that would be a good stance to take moving forward. So at least everybody's on the same page, and we're all because this is a situation where technology has outpaced the laws. Our founding fathers never envisioned auto pens as somebody clicking a button and signing something, and here we are today. So we need to clean that up moving forward.
Well, yeah. Derek, I love your idea that all of Robinette's activities as president would just be kind of washed clean from the American imagination, except the criminal things that he did, working with China, etc. But I have a friend who works for the Secret Service, and he told me, not for publication, not on the record, but I can talk about it. I'm a free American. And he told me about the big Pelican case that traveled around with Biden, filled with adult diapers and syringes and, Adderall and meth to get him up for every day. Every day, would he call a lid on everything by 2:30? It's just we've got to keep this in the back of our mind as Trump is going around saving the country. We've got to remember and continue to go back and revisit the people that got us here.
One of my favorite tweets prior to the Trump-Biden debate, where he just got hammered into the ground, was we're about to see the Manhattan Project of stimulants take place just so Biden can take the stage. Guys, we got to take a quick break, hear from our sponsor, and then we'll be right back with even more.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Guys, thank you for staying with us. And again, the best way to support our program is by supporting our sponsors. And you can help Mike Lindell in the process. I've been a fan of the My Slippers for years. As you can tell, my pair is a little roughed up. It's got a few stains on it, but I've been using these especially in winter time. If I've got to go throw logs on the fire or let the dog out in the middle of the night, then those are a lot better to slip in my shoes on. But you can really help our program out a lot and help Mike Lindell as he fights his battle for free and fair elections. Use code INSURRECTION. You'll get the deepest discounts. And I know right now they're still off, or their free shipping, I believe, just ended, but they're offering deep discounts on all their products, and you will get the biggest discount with the code INSURRECTION. Well, guys, we got one more story to cover with the basement dwelling child sniffer. Biden administration funneled at least $1 trillion $1 trillion with a T, 1,000 billions into DEI related projects, study finds. So he spent $1 trillion of our tax money, or I guess money borrowed from China, on creating more institutionalized racism throughout the departments. And now that's one of the big things that we've had to scrape out and get rid of as Trump came in to bring our country back to sanity.
I'll tell you, this would be a travesty even if we were not in debt. Like if we had a surplus and we spent $1 trillion on this nonsense, that would still be a travesty. But this is that much more magnified when you consider that we're, number one, we're $36 trillion in debt that we know of, and that he spent $1 trillion on this nonsense while operating on a budget deficit. It's not like he did this with a balanced budget and we had, this debt as well. I mean, they literally was like, we're going to print money that your great grandchildren are going to have to pay back so that we can push this nonsense and shove it down the throats of everybody across this country. This is unbelievable, unacceptable. And once again, $1 trillion is a number that is hard for us to quantify in our minds, but 1 trillion seconds is look it up. I don't remember what it was now. It's like a million years or something, thousands of years. It's insane how much 1 trillion really is that we spent pushing this narrative of the Rainbow Mafia.
Well, the Bidens, the Obamas, the Clintons, the Carters, go all the way back to Woodrow Wilson or Andrew Jackson, for that matter. They're such liars. The constant lying, the constant cheating in elections. And then, of course, now it's coming up. Everybody's kind of known about the cheating in the elections and the constant lying. But now it's coming up, the thieving, the stealing from the American people. That's not just theft or fraud or money laundering or wire fraud. That's treason. And, the last time we executed Democrats for treason or espionage was in 1953. Ethel and Julius Rosenberg were electrocuted in Sing Sing prison in New York. Are you telling me that over the last 75 years or 70 years, we haven't found there's been no Democrat that's committed treason since then? I don't think so. I'm not buying it. So the stealing of money, as Elon Musk has found, and I can hardly wait till to give him the passwords to Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, because he's going to find trillions gone, more than 1 trillion. And then, of course, the height of the drama and the theater on television will be when Trump and Elon Musk go into Fort Knox, because they're going to have a bunch of painted lead bars behind a locked gate, and then Musk is going to say, "Open the gate." And he's going to have a metallurgist with him, and they'll have a guy with a forklift. So they'll get deep into, they'll have real gold bars on the front, but then you get deeper and they'll get to the fake bars. And then Musk will have the metallurgist test the bars. And then, if it's not completely empty, President Trump is already alluding to, wouldn't it be terrible if it was empty? Yeah, it would be terrible. I don't know what happens to America if our gold reserves aren't there.
I got a question for you, Bill and Mike. This isn't necessarily part of the show or nothing we was planning to cover, but since you brought it up, it's something I've been wondering. I'd love to get y'all's thoughts. Let's say that, we know that they're going to go in there and check it out before, if they ever do live stream it, they're going to go in and check it out on their own, and they're going to decide, okay, we're going to stream this. Let's say they walk in there and it's empty and the gold's not there. Would you guys want them to tell the American people that there's no gold? Yeah. It would collapse everything, I would imagine. But or would you rather them lie to everyone for the sake of our country to keep everything afloat? What would you, and you guys in the chat, let me know what you guys think about that too, because I think this is a very real possibility, that a fork in the road that we're going to get to at some point. If they go down there and it's empty, what do they do? The correct thing is to tell everyone, but do you do the correct thing knowing it's probably going to completely collapse the entire country? What are your all's thoughts?
Michael?
You first, Bill.
Oh, okay. So I'm sorry I'm laughing. The whole thing is so insane. Sometimes you just have to laugh because we've already cried enough. So I think the truth will out is the right moral high ground, which as conservative Judeo-Christians, we always want to take the moral high ground if we possibly can. If we're going to destroy our country, then we might have second thoughts. But I think that more likely we'll be able to destroy the Democrat Party with this.
Yes.
And I think it's when the blame is assigned to the right people, and Republicans aren't stealing the gold. Everybody knows that. The Democrats have been putting IOUs into Social Security for decades and decades and are ruining that system, stealing money left and right. So it would quite rightly, the responsibility, the accountability, the blame would quite rightly land on the Democrat Party. I don't know what it would do to the world economy, but I suppose Trump is going to figure that out. The main thing here that's so compelling to me is that Trump is almost always right. He's not always right, but he's almost always right. They say the same thing about Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, and Joe Rogan. They say the same thing. They're almost always right. Trump would not surface this idea unless he had some real inclination, some real information that this might happen. So I understand the concern there, Derek. It's like it's a total catch-21 dilemma.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if President Trump and Elon Musk roll up and there's a dumpster full of empty Krylon cans, I guess we got something to really worry about. But they pretty much have to release this. If they go down there to audit Fort Knox and there's no gold in there, we have a right to know. That's our gold. It's supposed to, underpin our money. But we are on a fiat, faith and credit in the U.S. government system now. But that would also give them the leverage they need to end the Federal Reserve. I mean, if the gold's gone, they would have had something to do with it. It's also been rumored that all the gold was moved from Fort Knox to the Federal Reserve Bank in New York. They just put it in the basement there in their vaults. So either way, we got to know if that's where the gold is, the Federal Reserve is holding it. We go down to Fort Knox and it's empty. Well, what have we been spending, millions and millions, if not billions of dollars guarding an empty vault for the last however long it's been missing. So yes, if it comes through, the American people have to know if the Federal Reserve has the gold, they're going to have to give it back. And it would create a real opportunity and public support for not just auditing the Fed, but ending the Fed if our gold reserves were plundered and the American people weren't told about it.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I think another little tidbit that I heard recently, just this morning, was that it's estimated that of total USAID funding, we'll call it funding just for theater, 83% has been eliminated. So that's 83% of their contracts to give money away to Iraq for Sesame Street and all the other stupid things. There's much more. There was a lot of things that President Trump didn't release at the speech to Congress that were even more infuriating that they were doing with our money, including stealing it, of course. So I think that we have to keep this up. We have to follow it through to its bitter end. We need to start nailing the people. We're going to nail J6ers and put them in prison like 4 years and 4 days with no trial. No, we can't have that. We've got to put these people in prison. Let's start the time clock on how long they go with their Sixth Amendment right, without their Sixth Amendment right to a speedy trial. No, we got to start locking some people up. And there's no time for grand juries and investigations by Congress. I'm tired of that. That's what Democrats love, because they can put everything off and make everybody forget. So yeah, I mean, we got to follow this through.
Well, most everybody in the chat over here is saying that we deserve the truth. They want the truth, all of that, which I agree with. For the record, I just, I like to pose questions. Sometimes I don't think most people probably thought about. I don't think I think everybody's thought about, they're going to go audit the gold, but nobody's really thought about what happens if it's all gone. And it would be I believe that what they did anyways to our grandparents and great grandparents is the greatest theft in world history in terms of tricking everybody the way that they did to begin with. And I don't care if all the gold is there or not. I still want to end the Federal Reserve, abolish the Federal Reserve completely. It's unacceptable that we are in debt to these elite families,
Private
if
banks.
you will. And it's unbelievable that we're allowing this to happen. And even more so, if anybody was ever on the fence about ending the Federal Reserve, before President Trump was sworn in, and there was that interview or speech or whatever where the director of the Federal Reserve was questioned and asked if he would step down if President Trump asked him to or whatever, and he specifically stated that as the chair of the Federal Reserve, he answers to no one, including the President of the United States of America. And I think that is a major issue. If that doesn't wake people up, I don't know if anything ever will.
Yeah,
I do too.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to follow through on that thread that Derek's bringing up. Yeah, the Federal Reserve has to go. The quasi-governmental bureaucrats and the establishment uniparty thieves from around the world can't be allowed access to our monetary system anymore, obviously. But I think that, in terms of the real financial situation is that Trump is cleaning things up. We've got to get rid of the Federal Reserve. We've got to deny access to outsiders to our monetary system. And it's such a good point, because the Federal Reserve is something that really, really, really needs to go. And the idea that Powell is going to say, you can't fire me. Oh, okay. Let's see. Let's take that to SCOTUS.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I mean, this also just kind of underscores another point that, why we need to fix the American education system so people do understand how our country is supposed to operate, how monetary policy is supposed to work, how our currency actually works. Instead, they want everybody borderline retarded by the time they get out and, unable to read. That kind of gets us into this. Teacher Union Chief Randi Weingarten admits the real reason she doesn't want the education department closed. Well, I'll just go ahead and tell you, I'm not going to play the video of her ranting. She's afraid that if the Federal Department of Education ends, states get the funding, that there's no control mechanism for a leftist agenda through the Department of Education, that a lot of states are going to go to voucher programs. Then parents will have the opportunity to get away from government indoctrination centers and put their kids in a private, Christian or specialty school, something that will deliver real value and help us to make America great again, to help educate our students again, take the focus off DEI and the environment and the LGBTQ tranny madness agenda, and get them back to learning reading, writing, arithmetic, and history, and teach them to critically think. But yeah, they're terrified if people get out of their farm system right now, from kindergarten to college, that this is going to wreck the left.
Yeah, well, for the last 2 years, I've been one of these mama bears, kind of dad and granddads that's been storming our school boards and, under threat of arrest for speaking our truths. And it's because in our small county of 200,000 people, in the last year, there's been 7 suicides of Christian conservative girls. And these are caused by not only evil school boards and evil principals and teachers, but also by roaming bands of trans queer girls who are beating up on girls that won't convert. I call them suicide bullies. You've got furries, you've got pronoun pins, you got the dirty books, you got teachers and guidance counselors who aren't interested in getting the kids to college, but are more interested in saying, what kind of sex would you like to have? Here are your options. And they're doing this to 6th graders and 5th graders. And so when I see Randi Weingarten, I see an angry lesbian. Not that there's anything wrong with it, except everything in the entire Bible. And she's in there stealing money, giving all this kind of money laundering. The Democrats give them a bunch of money, then they kick it back to different candidates. And I put that in quotes because their candidates are terrible people. And it's time for the teachers' unions to go. I remember in the 80s and 70s even, they were talking in New York about, teachers earn less than garbage men. And at the time it was true. Somehow we've overcorrected now, so that teachers earn more than police officers who put their lives on the line. This insanity has got to stop with the teachers' union. And, really at this particular point, it's not just enough to get rid of the Department of Education, although I hail that. And I hail the idea of sending the money back to the states, but sending it back in a very orderly way by means testing and by checking them out and moral testing the schools before we give them any more money to hurt our children. We may have to just bring this whole sucker down and make sure that there are all kinds of options besides school vouchers and school choice and, all these kinds of things. I'm particularly fond of homeschooling, and not every mom and family can do that. But what's more natural than a mother teaching her child? That's the way it works in nature throughout the world and in the animal kingdom. And it's just sounds so right to me. Not every mom can do it. So they've come up with these community homeschools where 30 moms will each take one day with all their children, and that way they only have to take one day of work off per month each. And their children they're coming out and they're blowing the doors off kids from public schools, because 70% of public school children can't really read. So this is pathetic, and it's got to be stopped. We got to stop sending taxpayer money to these rotten drones who are sexually indoctrinating our children.
The greatest scam in the history of the world was the fact that they convinced parents that it was normal to send your 4-year-old off to be with strangers all day long, to be raised by other people from the age of 4 to 18, while you go work and grind at a job that you hate and doesn't really care about you, also that you can provide that. That is the greatest scam ever in the history of the world, and it's really sad. I'm so passionate about school choice and our public education system. I went to school to be an educator. I was a school teacher for 4 years before I said this is insane, all this stuff that's going on, and got out of it. My children go to a private Christian school through some school choice programs here in West Virginia, which is I wish that they would implement in every single state. I say all that to say that we absolutely 100% need to abolish the Federal Department of Education. One of the major issues right now with the Federal Department of Education that doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion, when we're talking about this whole issue that's going on right now, is the fact that you've got a lot of red states, and I'm going to use West Virginia for an example because I'm from here and I'm familiar with it, but there's a lot of other states in the same exact situation. A small red state that has been conditioned, unfortunately, to balancing their budget based on the federal tax dollars coming in for public education. I've been preaching for years, begging red states to start working towards balancing their budget without the dollars from the Federal Department of Education, even if it took 10 years to get there to that point. So, and the reason I say that is the federal government comes in and says, hey, people in West Virginia, we know that you guys, are still in the Bible Belt. You believe in traditional values. You don't believe in this trans ideology. But if you don't teach it in your schools, then you're not going to get this money to educate your children anymore. And so now they're using that as a metaphorical gun to the head of these small red states. Is either you push this trans agenda, you push this the climate change agenda, you push all this stuff in your schools, or you're not going to get the funding to have that. And the other thing is that the left is so they're not genuine at all when they try to spread. Yes, they're trying to spread this narrative that abolishing the Federal Department of Education means that these parents are going to wake up one day and there's not going to be a public school to send their kids to. That's not what we're saying. We're saying get rid of all the fat and all the bureaucracy at the federal level, get rid of the strings attached, if you will, send that money directly to the states. And now as a parent, as a taxpayer, you are that much closer to the decision makers of the people who are deciding how that money that they're receiving is going to be used to educate your child. And so now you can advocate for that. And if they're not doing what you want them to do, you can voice those concerns to them by going to meetings. You can vote them out of office and replace them. I don't understand how anyone, even if you are a left-wing extremist who wants all this trans ideology pushed in your schools, I don't know how you could be against getting the money directly back to the state and the local levels where the taxpayers and the parents and all these, where you actually have a say-so and a voice. I've never met anyone from the Federal Department of Education. Who would you even call if you have a complaint about that? Like, who do you vote out of office? Who do you hold accountable? These people are unelected. So if you put that money back to the local communities where there's accountability, and guess what? Now when you're out at your local grocery store or at your youth baseball games or something, and you see that person, and they have to look you in the eye and explain to you why they're spending this money on what they're spending on, they're going to be less likely to go against the community. But right now they're hiding in D.C. and they're just a name on the wall and nobody knows who it is, and there's no accountability here, and it's allowing them to run amok. And our entire education system is broken from beginning to end. And I don't understand why anybody could be against this. We have to abolish the federal Department of Education, return the power back to the states, back to the local communities, back to you and me and we the people.
So beautifully said. So beautifully said, Derek. You and I are in complete agreement on this. And when I was interviewing President Trump by phone last year a number of times for Newsmax, there was always time to talk. He loves to talk about different things after the questions are over or before the questions are over. And it was just, I told him about the suicides here and he just said, oh my God, and just stopped for a moment. And then after that, immediately there was a response module in his rallies about, I will immediately defund any public schools that bring this trans queer ideology, this insanity into our schools. And that got the loudest standing ovation in a lot of his rallies. So we're on the right track.
Well, yeah, and I think that's where a lot of parents are too. But to your points earlier, if you're at your kid's softball game and you corner a school board member or a teacher and you want to find out why they're putting litter boxes in the bathroom, right now they can shirk that off and say, oh, it's because the federal government makes us do it to be compliant with these idiot LGBTQ policies. But they're not going to be able to answer that question if everything's come back to control at the local level. Then you'll have an individual you can actually hold responsible. That's part of what they don't want. And again, we've said this before. If these satanic communists running the Democrat Party right now had to be honest, they couldn't win dog catcher in Walla Walla, Washington. But guys, we got to take one more quick break, hear from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with more.
Well, hello everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. But I'm sure for this, I hope I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
And thank you for staying with us. And again, go to LUTF Studios, pick up an original handmade piece of artwork from Annie Cyrus. And again, you can see her over here on X America News every Wednesday evening with me for He Said, She Said, and every Tuesday and Thursday with her program, Live Up to Freedom, not to mention all the hard work she does producing numerous shows that you can see over here on X America News. Well, let's pull one more outrage story. I think we got just about enough time to get into this. Veteran Affairs Secretary Doug Collins says they've cut $900 million after reviewing just 2% of unnecessary contracts. So this has been a combination of eliminating some of these junk contracts and then also just renegotiating things where they were overpaying by immense amounts on necessary materials, services, a whole variety of things. I saw one of them where they were paying somebody, I think it was like $2,000 a month to water, 7 or 9 plants in one of the facilities. So just going through and cutting these contracts has saved almost $1 billion and only 2% through. So let's see if they get, we lost Derek. If we get through the rest of the contracts, I don't know if he can save $500 billion, but he's on that path now.
Well, we've got to protect our veterans. That's been one of President Trump's big issues. And he did so much with the VA and allowing them to go and pick their own doctors. He's just, you can tell he's so angry he's flipping out about what they're finding. He was so, I don't know how he restrains his temper. I couldn't do it if I was President Trump in the Oval Office, hearing all these shocking stories of what these thieving abortion ghouls are doing with our money, and then claiming that Social Security is going to run out by, 2030 or whatever. It's constantly an ever-moving set of goalposts about when our social programs are going to run out. They were all set up by FDR to steal money from the American people. And so yes. I just want to put a bow on Derek's impassioned statement about children in the schools. Derek, God bless your children. I'm so glad you got them into a good school situation because, polls constantly say, oh, immigration and the economy, immigration and the economy. I'm sorry. The most important issue today is protecting our children. That's it. Of course, we'd like to fix the economy. We'd like to fix abortion. We're doing that. And Trump's on that. He's all over that. He's got.
I always tell everybody, look, we do not co-parent with the government. Period. End of discussion. I don't co-parent with the government. They're my children. And I'll quickly say this for anybody who's interested in school choice programs. I was elected to the state house here in West Virginia, and so I'm just saying that to share with you that it's so much easier to go to your state legislature and ask your state rep, your state senator, and ask them to offer up a bill in your own state if it already exists in another state. It's so much easier because now it's already been done. They can, kind of take that and replicate it and tailor it to your individual state. And I say all that to say we in West Virginia, we passed back in 2020 what's called the West Virginia Hope Scholarship. And I'll just telling you that if you're wanting school choice in your state, this is the program that you want. You need to look that up. You need to print it off. You need to take it to your state rep and say, this is what I want. And I'm going to briefly describe what it does. So historically, if I pull my kids out of the local school district to homeschool or to send them to Christian school or whatever, the school district still received the state funding and the federal funding for my child, whether they educated that child or not. So there was no incentive for them to listen to you. There was no reason. They didn't care if you pulled your child out. They got money to not educate your child. So for them it was a win-win. But in West Virginia with the Hope Scholarship, what we did is we attached the money not to the school district the way it's historically done across the country. We attached the money to the child. The money follows the child. So guess what? Now in West Virginia, our state funding is, I think it's $4,800 a kid, $4,800. So now I get $4,800, my wife and I, for our children that we can use to either homeschool if we want to, and we can go on Amazon and buy all these different things for homeschooling. It's approved purchases. Obviously, you can't go out and go buy drugs and pop or something with it, obviously, but you can buy approved products for homeschooling with that money. And for my situation, the $4,800 either covers or goes towards the tuition of private Christian schools. So my private Christian school does not charge $4,800. So my children get to go to private Christian school. I don't want to say for free because it's my money as a taxpayer, but I'm not having to come out of additional money for that. And it's an amazing program. I cannot speak highly enough of that. And I wish that we could get this implemented in every state. And I would love to see President Trump as they're discussing school choice programs at the federal level to consider doing the same thing at the federal level to really empower parents and give them that ability. I mean, you mentioned earlier, not everybody can afford to do that. Well, if they're able to now not have to come out of pocket to pay for all these extra things, it's going to make it a lot easier for these families to pull their children out of what we now call these liberal indoctrination camps, because that's exactly what they are.
Well, I agree with what you're saying about, so it's just a fait accompli that the Department of Education has to go. But I kind of push back against the idea of giving all the money to the states, because the states like California, New York, Illinois, even North Carolina they're run by Democrats. So they're just going to push the money towards DEI and transgender again. What we need to do is withhold the billions of dollars, get rid of the Department of Education, withhold the billions of dollars, let the schools that are going to go right under, because they'll self-select themselves into oblivion. They're already short on funds and trying to steal money from other places. So let them go under naturally as a form of Darwinian death. And then, the good schools will survive. And then you give the money to the good schools that don't do DEI and don't do transgender insanity. I think that's part of the formula for success.
Yeah, or just attach that to the federal funds now. We don't have to have a Department of Education, so you can only get access to this money if you eliminate DEI, climate change nonsense, and other crap from your curriculum. Now, I know some states are still going to do it, because my only concern with just throwing it back to the states is we already know how these people operate in Chicago, LA, New York, Washington, D.C. They're going to prop up the failing schools. I mean, it'll be like New Jersey, where they spend, used to, I don't know if it still is, they used to spend more per student than any other state, but they were second from the bottom for having the worst students that pop out after they graduate. But yeah, it's a complex issue, but I do think like returning the power to the states, maybe setting some guidelines and going back to competency testing. Like, do they still do like the Iowa basic tests or things like that? Because I mean, we just covered a story briefly the other day about a high school student. I can't remember what state, where she just graduated high school and she can't read, and she's the valedictorian. Like, we can't have that kind of stuff happening ever.
Well, I have video of teachers in our school district giving the standardized tests on which they determine the effectiveness of their own teaching. And while they're giving the tests, giving the answers to the kids, because they can't be found out and get fired for their deviousness and their thievery in our schools. So they have to give the kids the answers. Now, you don't think the kids know about this stuff? They do. Yeah. And the parents are increasingly finding out about it. They're finding out about lazy teachers that go to the teacher's lounge and wheel in a TV set and turn on CNN for the kids for hours on end. It's got to be stopped. And let's pray for President Trump and our newly sworn in Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon. I pray for them on my knees every night, and I really want them to save the children, and I believe strongly that they will.
I do as well. I know we're out of time, Mike, but I do want to give him one more round of shout outs because I missed a few a second ago. So we got Traveling for Events over here in the Rumble chat, says that they used to work on President Trump's campaign. And then I'm sorry, guys, my router rebooted, so I lost a lot of stuff. So I'm going to miss out on everything else. Sherry over here, Sherry Angel, appreciate you for tuning in as well. You guys have a great day, and God bless you guys. We really appreciate all the support from y'all.
Well, before we dip out of here, Bill, are there any words of wisdom you want to leave our audience with, and where can they find you?
Well, they can find me at Relentless Bill almost everywhere on social media, from Facebook to Gab to, Telegraph to Signal and everywhere in between. And you can find most of my articles from all the publications I've written for them by entering Relentless Bill or Relentless Bill Newsmax. You'll come up with a lot of my work product. I guess the words of wisdom are this: never give in, never give up, never surrender. And we all know where those words come from.
Absolutely. Well, those are words to live by. To our audience, please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. And we'll be back tomorrow with even more. Thanks again.